Hello everyone. Today we're going to take a look at solving a tricky but one of the more simple algorithms that already exist within C Sharp. We're going to try and mimic this string join function, and we're going to do so for just specifically integer lists. We see here that there are various other ways to use this string.join function. We'll cover that in a later video, but for now we're just going to focus on building the basic structure of it. So let me just run form 1 so that you can see what it does. All it's doing is it's taking this integer list and then it's putting it into a string so that we can just display it in a message box here. So that's what show list click does. Now we want to replicate this function. So we have to put on our problem solving hat and come up with a way to do so. So the first thing I notice here is we have a function with two parameters. So by default, I'm going to write private. I would recommend the same. Start with private unless you know why it should be public. And let's look at the return type here. It's a string. It's returning a string. So we want a string as well. That's going to be our return type. That's how it's able to go into the Messagebox Show here. You can see as I mouse over Messagebox Show, the string text variable is what is being put in here, where it converts the integer list into just strings. One big string, rather. So this here, everything highlighted here before the comma, is a string variable type, so that's what this will be. And we're just going to call our function join in the spirit of that function. Here the join function has two parameters, the separator, which I put in here as comma space, and then the IEnumerable, which is going to be our integer list in this case. That's an interface. We haven't covered interfaces yet, but we will cover interfaces later. So let's do a string separator the same way join does. And let's do list integer. And I'm going to call it LST. So far, we've mimicked the same structure. And now, ideally, we could just delete string dot and use this function. That's our goal here. So that's why we've named it join. That's why we put these two parameters in. And let's continue. So how are we going to solve this question here? Well, the first thing we want to do is kind of set ourselves up for success here. We're going to say, okay, the first thing I want is to return a result, and so our result variable is going to be what we're building up that is going to store all of this information. So we're just starting from square one here. I'm going to need a string. I'm going to return the string back to our caller here, which is this messagebox.show first parameter string text. So we're going to return result. If we did this right now, we would just see an empty string. Let me show that. It will run. We haven't built any logic into it yet, but we get an empty string. So our function is already working more or less as intended. We're mimicking this string.join function. The string.join function is what's given to us by .NET C# here. So how are we going to build this function? So I'm going to start off with two steps here. The first step we want to go with is, okay, let's just read through the list and let's do some string concatenation where we add to this result variable here. So let's read through the list. We know it's a list of integers, so I can do for each int I in lst, which is what I've named my variable for the list. So now we've found a way to go through each item on this list. Remember, the end goal here is we want to display all of these integers and separate them with this separator here, separate them with this value. Maybe it's a dash, could be a space. In this instance, I did a space, a comma, and then a space. So here we've found a way to read through all of our list integers on the list. So here we have slowly come to a closer conclusion. So let's display what this looks like. Excuse me, I need to delete string.join because that was the correct answer already. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's really good progress because those are all the numbers in my list. What's missing? What's missing is this separator. We have not put the separator in between the numbers. But we can do that pretty simply by putting the separator before the number. I'm doing plus equals here. We could also do equals result plus here. Those two are going to do the same thing. Everything on the right hand side is going to get evaluated and assigned to the left hand side. So if result is just the double quotes, empty string here, it's going to be an empty string plus this value plus the integer value of 1. And then it's going to be 1 comma space added with the separator, and then this value here. So let's take a look at what this prints out. Remember, this is iterative. We're slowly trying to get to the correct answer here. Okay, this is very close to what we want. We see that we have this comma plus in front, and then if we just eliminate this part, everything else looks correct. Everything else looks correct. I'm going to change this back to the plus equals because it makes my code a little cleaner looking. So the last detail is we need to eliminate this separator for the first value because we can see every value after the first value is right. So how do we eliminate that for the first value? Well, we need to know if we are on the first pass of our for each loop. If we're on the first pass of our for each loop, we do not want this separator. So we can build that on our own. I'm going to store a variable called first pass. And If it's not first pass, then we're just going to run this code. This handles every case except the first pass. Because here I've said if it's not first pass, run this code. But what about when it is first pass? Well, if it is first pass, then we just want to put the number. We just want to put the number. And we also need to change this first pass variable to false, which will send us into this. This will evaluate to true because it's not first pass. So not false will be true. And then we will just iteratively run this code the remainder of the time. So we will run this code the first time only. And then we say first pass is no longer true, it's false. And then we'll just run this code. And then that solves that issue of that comma space running on that first go. So let's take a quick peek at this and make sure everything worked as intended. Looks good. Let's try it with something else, maybe a dash. One dash two dash three dash four dash five. Just as you would hope. Just as you would hope. So that's one way to rewrite the string .join function here. We've replicated it, building it with our own logic and our own brain power. And that's all I want to cover for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye.